Welcome to the Startup Storytelling Podcast at Lean Rocket Lab. I'm your host, Brandon Markin, and I'm here today with my co-host, Alex Maston.
Oh, you left out the mostest. Okay. You know what? I just noticed. You don't have your yellow glasses on, man. I should have worn them for the both of us.
Gotta mix it up.
Yeah, you do. Okay. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. Well, welcome. Welcome to our next episode. Very, very excited to introduce and welcome Aaron Cole from DoughNation Bakery with us today.
How's it going, guys?
Woo, woo! Welcome.
Before we dive in with Aaron, I do have to ask, I missed the last episode. Ken filled in for me. I didn't ask, how did he do?
Oh, he did wonderful. He had such great questions. It was really fun. It was like different, you know? And I got to be you and he got to be me. It was great.
He would be more inquisitive and
he was.
Natural questions.
You know, you should see the video. He's just like, He just like could not wait to ask another
like
question.
Ken.
Yeah,
He's
it was
people.
awesome.
Yeah, that's why people like
Well,
him.
Aaron gets us now. He gets you and I. So.
Darn, I would have rather had Ken.
I know.
Not really.
Brandon's great.
All right, let's move on from that. I'm so happy you're here, Aaron. I think that this is an incredible story. I'm excited for the listeners of the podcast to hear the DoughNation origin story, where you're at today. I'm particularly invested. You know, you were our paths crossed early on in the journey, and I think like I look back or I look at what you're doing, and I just feel like humble and proud of everything you've accomplished, and so it's super cool. And so thanks for being on with us.
Not a problem. You were really the start of the journey, actually. I mean, quasi start as far as the business side of things. You and Ken both reached out to me and were like, "Hey, your bread's really good. You should do this as a business." And I'm like, not so much a business guy. And they were like, "We got you covered. We can do this. Let's do this."
You do remember how that part of it came to be?
I don't remember.
Okay, so this was early days of Lean Rocket Lab. We're like 1 year in, not even. COVID happens. We're closed, I think.
We were all trying to forget that.
Yeah, so maybe it was right before COVID, I think. But Terry Mearswell walked into my office downtown at the lab, and he said, "Hey," and at this point we had, very early, Consumers Energy was one of our early founding partners at the lab, helped us launch. And he said, "Hey, Patty Poppy really likes this bread. She wants you to help this guy launch a business.
That's awesome.
He needs to open a bakery." And I was like, "Huh?" And he's like, "Make it happen." And
I had no idea that Patty was involved at all.
No way. That's awesome.
That was
She's like a superhero to me. I've always loved Patty Poppy.
Well, so now you know she was like an original fan.
I had no idea.
And we got like a messenger sent into us, and it was like, "Make this
Terry Mearswell
happen." He walks in.
This is how it
and
needs
I was
to be.
like, "What do you mean? I don't know if that's how this works." But so that was probably the genesis of that phone call. So.
That's amazing.
Besides that, tell everybody the story of how you got started, because it's pretty cool.
Well, I've always baked bread. My family has always, I've always tried to bake my own family's bread. It has not always been sourdough. That sourdough is kind of a newer thing to me. I had tried it several times over the past, 20 years, and it never seemed to work out. I've read books. I have a huge collection of sourdough books, but it never seemed to work out. And right before the pandemic started, I was doing like I'm going to try sourdough again. And there's this thing called YouTube now that wasn't around back when I had tried it the previous times. And I could actually watch other people doing sourdough. And that made a huge difference to like actually see what their hands are doing and what the dough looks like when it's moving. Because you can see still pictures in a book all you want, but to like know how the dough is actually, like what it feels like, you kind of see it on the screen, and that made a huge difference. So I was watching YouTube videos on sourdough, and then at the time I was working at Brembo North America in Homer, and machine and brake rotors on third shift. Which is a blast.
Shout out to our friends at Brembo.
Shout out to Brembo.
Totally do that sometime. And I was struggling with some back problems. It wasn't really work related. I think it was, I'm a bigger guy and I've always just had like lower back pain, but I was having these muscle spasms, and it got to a point where I was like taking so much Tylenol and ibuprofen in a day that I just thought, I'm going to die if I keep taking these pills. And so I was like, I just left work one night, right? It was as the shift was closing, and I just I walked out and I called in. I called and left a message over the weekend and said, "Hey, I got to go see a doctor. I'm in a lot of pain." and
Oh my gosh.
and so this was like a part of the therapy that they came up with. So I was in therapy with Mitch over at Spring Arbor University and doing massage and getting all these injections and stuff to try to get my back to stop spasming. And part of the therapy was like they said you need to be on your feet. You can't just sit around the house and relax when you're not doing your physical therapy. You need to be up and be around. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do this sourdough, and that'll give me a reason to be on my feet at least every half an hour so that I can be mobile. And so about 3 weeks, 4 weeks into therapy, I'm much better. I'm doing my sourdough, and then the world like falls apart and shuts down for COVID. And I get released to go back to work. And work is like, we're not open. You don't have a job to come back to. And it was like, oh crap. Okay.
What a time. What a time that was.
So I guess I'm unemployed now. So I was like, well, I'm going to keep baking. And at the same time, stores were like, they had no bread, they had no flour, they had no yeast, they had no, like everybody, but I was buying like industrial sized bags of flour for myself because I liked to bake so much. So I had lots of flour on hand, and I was just like, well, I'm going to bake every day. And my wife and I are sitting there thinking, we cannot possibly eat all this bread. So I posted on Facebook. I said, hey, I baked these loaves of bread. Who wants them? I realize there's people out there that probably don't have bread right now. And if you are struggling to find bread, I'm baking bread every day. So that's just kind of how it started. And I started giving it away on my front porch. And everybody was very afraid back then. Like you couldn't come in contact with anybody. And so I just put a table out on my front porch. It was like March 5th, I think. So it's like still winter. And I would just bake bread and I'd put it in a bag and set it out on the porch, and I'd make a post on Facebook. Hey, there's bread on the table. And it quickly became a thing where it was like, I need to bake as much bread as I can because it's disappearing within 5-10 minutes off the front porch.
Well, yeah. And I mean, I think everyone remembers it was a very like memorable time in the world, but in the beginning of the pandemic, it was like people were home from work, losing their jobs. There was like real shortages of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think there was just like high levels of angst around that situation. And like in other countries, there were straight up like crazy food shortages, and it was just like a tumultuous time. And I just remember when you did that, and obviously we were friends and saw seeing your stuff, and I just remember thinking like, man, this is just like a good thing to do for people. And then I remember there was like people started paying it forward, and it kind of like became its own thing. I don't know,
there were people that were like, hey man, you got to at least let us donate to because I just put bread out on the table and was giving it away. And so I put a donation basket out there. I'm like, okay, fine. And took donations for the bread, and that bought more bread, more flour and things like that. And then somebody donated an oven. An old friend from high school donated an oven to me. So I got that wired up out in my garage. And like within 3 weeks, I was to the point where I was making, I don't know, 80 loaves of bread a day, and then started playing around with bagels and some other products and stuff like that. And the whole donation thing, just kind of the play on words with that. You and Kenny were like, dude, this is
so good.
I really like this name, DoughNation.
and then we were like, but I think we're gonna have to charge for bread at some point.
At some point in time. But so yeah, we did like 8 months.
Right.
The first 8 months of the business were just completely donation based.
Crazy.
Even when I was selling out of the front of Lean Rocket Lab, doing the pop-up markets out on the street corner, it was all like, it's whatever you want to pay for it, which was actually very uncomfortable. So, I mean, people are like, what do you mean what I want to pay for it? Like, it was just an uncomfortable, like nobody wants to guess how much they should pay.
It was like born out of this, like you were helping people out, and then all of a sudden you were getting a cult following and everyone wanted the bread. And so it was just a little bit of a transition.
Yeah.
But that was like part of a transition for you in general, because you went from being really what I would call like an artist, an artisan chef, kind of guy. You know, you have background doing all this cool stuff, pottery, and you know, I like to say you were doing sourdough before it was like a mom meme.
Before it was cool.
Yeah,
before
on
it was cool.
Instagram, before it was cool. And so then like that was probably the bigger leap of faith for you, and the bigger kind of unknown was I'm gonna start a business, and I'm gonna flip from just being a good dude who's making bread, and then all of a sudden you had like a cult following and people are asking for lots of bread. Talk about that part of the story a little bit.
Well, it definitely was nerve-wracking. You know, starting a business. That's why, like, when you and Kenny came to me and were like, "Hey, man, you should do this as a business," I'm just like, I actually would love to own a business. I've always kind of had an entrepreneurial spirit. I've had a pottery business. I had a pottery studio out of my house for a while, but they've always been very like hobby based, more or less. And the business side of it has always just been like a struggle. As an artisan, I don't know if you know any other artists, but
yes, I do.
we're not really business people. So having the Lean Rocket Lab just kind of took the edge off of that nervousness, that anxiety that comes with owning a business, you know, filling out the paperwork and LLC this and doing business as and going and filing paperwork. You guys like walked me through all that, and it really took the edge off that. But taking that leap of faith of calling Brembo and being like, "Hey, I'm not coming back."
Dude,
I don't want to
air your laundry here, but I also remember like meeting with your wife. She's like, "Hey, should he be doing this?" And I was like, "Oh boy, I'm officially outside of the lane of what we're supposed to be consulting."
I probably should have talked to her before I called them.
Oh, that's funny. That would have been me. I would have been like that.
But yeah, I mean,
she was in the lab a few times too. Like, "Hey, what are we doing right now? What's happening? Is this real?"
And she's the one that really is. She's a calendar person.
Right.
Lists. She's like always making lists, and so she's the one that really has held the whole thing together as we march through this whole thing of starting a business, and kind of keeps it all floating. And I'm just the artisan. Like I make the bread and I train people. We have like 7 people on staff now that.
Yeah, I was going to say,
amazing.
so I want to hear the whole story, but for the sake of the audience that maybe doesn't know, so you bake kind of your first loaves during COVID as a way to just help out. And then what is DoughNation Bakery today? What are you doing right now? And then we'll circle back on the story of how it got there. But just so people fully understand really how successful and cool that this has become, all the different things you have going on today.
Well, I mean, DoughNation Bakery currently, we're really trying. The whole process was an exercise in modesty, I think, because I could have like done like gigantic expansions and gone into a bunch of debt and like built a huge business out of it, distributing sourdough all over Michigan. But we really tried to like keep it as small as possible because we didn't want to, I don't know if you'd call it sell out, or we didn't want the product to suffer. And in the process of growing, there's a huge struggle and growing pains involved in, like, as you grow, anytime that you change your oven or like upgrade to a new oven, like everything changes. And when you go from hand mixing to using a big mixer, like it all changes. And so my main goal was the product needs to be the main point. It needs to be as simple as possible, and it needs to be as nutritious as possible. And so keeping it as simple as possible while still growing and being at least mildly profitable was the struggle. But we weren't willing to sacrifice the product. So we've kept it very simple. We just do breads and bagels.
And how many, your bread is available in multiple locations right now.
Yeah, I think you're
making
on the east side of Jackson now,
right,
in Grass Lake. But we're at I think 8 different cafes. Some of the places don't sell our bread, like Trailhead Coffee in Concord. They just use our bread. They use our bagels. They make bagel sandwiches, and they're phenomenal. So they do breakfast sandwiches there. And I'm trying to think if there's some other ones that just use our bread. Kibbe Cobb uses our bread for their sandwiches, their Reuben sandwich, which was just voted the best Reuben. So those are places that just use our bread, but there's other places like Frank's ShopRite in Grass Lake, all the way over to the west side of Hutch's and Vito's Espresso, where they actually sell the product as well. I think we're in 7 or 8 different locations around Jackson. And
Cafe Fuel.
Cafe Fuel, down right in the front of Lean Rocket Lab. That's where it all started.
Shameless plug.
That's where it all started. It was in
We,
that lobby.
we sell the bread and
And
use
use
the
it.
bread. And so all of our sandwiches and yeah.
And I believe you guys just upgraded to the restaurant-sized loaves for for some of the
Yes, we
sandwiches,
did.
I believe.
We're getting a gas over there.
So
Yeah.
that is
If you want a bagel sandwich, that'll change your
the
life.
bagel sandwiches are definitely life-changing,
Yeah.
but I believe the toasted sandwiches are really good as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. All
I
right.
think I've had
well,
one of each.
other than, the Cafe Fuel plug, which I appreciate that, tell us the story. How did you just walk us through the journey from going from like, I'm going to do this as a hobby, passion project, artist kind of thing to, hey, all right, I'll sell some loaves to, like you said, you probably were almost trying to restrain the growth more than you were trying to push really hard for it because you were wanting to keep that product integrity and that brand integrity. But at some point along the lines, you got a new location, you got new equipment, you got some employees. You're not making every loaf by hand anymore. You've experienced the highs and lows. So just walk us through the story. Tell us the journey.
Yeah. So the first 2 years were out of my garage, really. So my garage was a pottery studio. It hasn't been a garage in 40, I don't know how many years. Like I grew up in that house and then bought the house for my parents, and that has never been a garage. It was a pottery studio for the first few years that we lived there. And then when the bakery kind of started taking off, it moved into the garage. I moved a bunch of the pottery stuff over to one corner. Then I made some connections with a pottery place over in Ann Arbor that could kind of I could rehome my equipment. I kind of put it on permanent loan with them. Like I kind of really want this equipment still, but I don't have a place for it because I need to use this garage as a bakery, and pottery equipment and bakery don't really mesh together.
Right.
So then I got all the pottery equipment out of there, cleaned everything up, and put sinks in there and did a bunch of plumbing and stuff like that, and converted the garage into a bakery. We operated out of there doing hand mixing everything with.
And were you still cottage food in the garage,
Yeah.
or did you get licensed?
So we were
at some
cottage
point?
food because the garage is not a commercial location.
Right.
It has to be a licensed kitchen.
Right.
So everything had to be sold by me face to face.
That's why you
how
were
cottage
literally
industry works.
standing in front of Lean Rocket Lab
Exactly.
with a table
For 2 years.
selling everything for 2 years. Yeah.
And so we would do it, well, I think 2 to 3 times a week. I think
Right.
we came down to Lean Rocket Lab. So I would have
We'd have literal bread lines.
I would have
Lean
a-
Rocket Lab
Yeah.
2 days a week.
a mixing and baking day.
Right.
And so that would take about 18 to 20 hours to mix and bake the bread. We didn't have refrigeration or anything like that back then. So it was all a single process. And then I would take a nap for about 4 hours and then get up and go to the Lean Rocket Lab and sell all the bread that we had just made. And then that has transitioned. Once we moved into Vito's Espresso in Spring Arbor, they used to be a Jackson location, and then they purchased the old Spring Arbor Cafe in Spring Arbor. And they were looking for a building at the same time I was looking for a building, and we had talked a few times, looked at different buildings around Jackson, and they landed on Spring Arbor Cafe and said, "Hey, do you want to move in here with us?" I'm like, "Absolutely." So I think it was June of 23, something like that. Or 22, June
I
of
get so confused all
22.
the time. Dates.
We moved into there. The restaurant wasn't open yet, but the drive-through was open and the kitchen was open. So I was able to use the kitchen as a commercial location, which then allowed me to distribute. And that was probably one of the biggest leaps.
Yeah, that was an inflection point.
To be able to go from selling the bread lines in front of Lean Rocket Lab to actually having a rack of bread. Those same days, the same days of the week, I could just load the rack up with bread, and people could come in and buy the bread through the cafe, and then it was not just me selling bread; it was actually a way to help the cafe bring in more customers as well, and they would sell the bread for me. They would get a cut of the profits from it, and I was able to triple. I think we tripled our output at that point in time, and very rapidly outgrew our space at Vito's.
Yeah.
So we were there for a total of a year, and then it was just too
Time
we
to
couldn't
move out.
keep up with.
Was that just you, Aaron, or did you have employees
Mainly,
at that
so
time?
I had employees, but they were like my on-call people that they would come in at like 7 o'clock in the morning. I would get there about 6 o'clock at night. And because it was too much to do while Vito's was actually operating. So I would work through the night, still working third shifts. Easy transition from Brembo to working third shifts. So,
right.
so I would come in and after dinner and kind of get things rolling, and I would mix and bake all night long. And then 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning, somebody would come in and like finish slicing the bread while I was packing the van up. And then either I or sometimes it got a little bit hairy, and I would actually have somebody else do the deliveries, but I was doing most of the deliveries. But
I just remember talking to you in the early days, and I remember my biggest fear for you was I was like, oh, this guy likes this hobby of baking bread, and he's going to go do this as a business, and he's going to hate it and hate his life, and it's going to burn him out. And I mean, it's like a tale as old as time.
Sure.
You know, the artist kind of becomes a like burned out businessman. That didn't happen. I mean, for the most part, it seems like
not to the general public. It didn't happen.
But like behind the scenes, there were times it did.
Oh,
right?
it was very stressful. I was in tears multiple days, even after I moved into my own shop. That was actually another one of those inflection points where, okay, so I outgrow Vito's. I at the same time, Tiki Sam, a good friend of mine, Sam DeRocher, he was wrapping up his physical location and starting a second food truck. And he was like, bro, you want to take over my lease? And it was a great opportunity for me to get into my own location. So I move into this new location, but it's still just me.
Right.
And I've got a couple people that I can call on to help.
So you are hating it at that point.
But at that point in time, I'm like, it was a very stressful time. And there were days like I'm trying to keep up with production. And at about hour 16, I'm just standing there going, I have so much left to do. And I would be crying. I would call my wife and like, I can't, what am I doing?
So that was I'm sure a time when you were like, I need to hire somebody,
Yeah.
right? So talk to us about that and how you did that and how it's worked out for you.
Well, yeah, hiring people has always been a funny thing to me because I don't know whether it's just a gut thing. Like I've never felt comfortable like posting on LinkedIn or like I'm not a person that like makes a post on Facebook to say, hey, we're hiring if you're interested. I don't know why, but that just never like, I feel like I don't want this to come across the wrong way, but I've always felt like it was going to be weirdos off the street that are like, I'll bake bread with you. And I'm like, I don't know you. And
yeah.
And so
totally.
For me, it was just like I would run into people or I would see people. And a couple of my hires were actually people where, and maybe this isn't kosher, but I would scalp people from other businesses.
Yeah, if you see like good skills and you're like,
man.
ooh.
Like at fast food, I would be at a fast food restaurant and I would be like, that one person back there is holding the whole thing together.
I'm like that.
I can
totally like
see that person is a quality employee.
Making it all
And I
work.
would wait for the opportunity to be like,
You're like in the parking lot waiting until they go.
oh, never like that. No, that would be really creepy. But I mean, I'm
with
sure
you
it's
on that.
creepy
That's like-
enough to like be in the drive-thru and be like, hey, so
What's his name back there? What's her name? Yeah.
Yeah, that person back there that's doing
here.
it all.
Can you give a business card?
tell them
for
to
me?
come over here. I need to talk to them.
Oh, that's funny.
That's good though. I think that's good.
But I've only hired one person that way.
Okay.
Really, and a weird thing is it turned out to be the brother of a good friend of mine from not my past life, but like my single days when I lived in Ann Arbor. One of my friends over there
Small world.
turned out to be his brother, and I was like, oh man, this is so crazy. You're his brother.
Hey, before we go too far past it, I did just want to double click on one thing. So when you were selling at the table in front of Lean Rocket Lab, one thing I always thought was interesting, we talk a lot in the startup world about customer discovery, voice of the customer feedback. And I remember, just walking by the table or being in line, people were giving you radically candid feedback all the time, every day on different recipes, different flavors, pricing, the way it was. And I just remember thinking like, this is invaluable. And so by the time you launched your like brick and mortar location where you were ramping up production, you had an incredible amount of data on what people loved and what they wanted. I mean, is that a fair statement?
Yeah. When you're making things on a regular basis, you quickly understand what people are, what they really want, what they are not going to buy. And that is still a struggle with us. Like just recently, I don't know if you saw the post, but I posted something and people were like, hey, when are you going to make that rye bread again? It's amazing. And it's like, I love the fact that you love my rye bread. This is the same rye bread that Kibby Cobb won the award for their best Reuben with. It is an amazing rye bread, but it doesn't sell.
Oh,
Right.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
And it's like, I can't make something and put it on store shelves if it's not going to sell. I need like the smallest batch of bread that I can make. It's about 30 loaves and for a flavor. And so if I can't sell at least 22 of those loaves in the 3 days that I have available to sell it, it just makes it really difficult.
Yeah, and
That is such
that's
great
a
advice.
discipline probably that it takes to learn, like even just how to say no. Because
Yeah.
in
Sure,
the beginning,
yeah.
everyone was
Like-
making requests, and
Yeah.
I like this and I like that, and just even learning how to be like, yeah, I get that, but we got to make the stuff that really is in the sweet spot. I mean, that was a discipline in of itself.
We used to have like 46 different flavors
I remember.
that we would
Wow.
make of just random. I would always have my regular sourdough, but then I would have like all these different flavors. And I honed it down over the years to, I think right now we have 5 sweet breads and 5 savory breads, something like that, 6. I made a new one today because I was itch. I made an Asiago herb loaf, but that'll be out in stores probably by the time this airs.
Okay.
So yeah, like learning and honing it back to be like, listen, I love making this bread and it's an amazing bread, but if nobody buys it, like those ingredients are expensive.
No doubt.
The ingredients to make those special breads triple the cost of the bread, more than triple the cost of the bread. I mean, the dried blueberries that we use, the amount of flour that it takes to make a loaf of bread is like pennies. But the blueberries, it's like $2 worth of blueberries in one loaf, So it's like it makes the whole batch really expensive to make, and then you got to make sure you sell it. So
I just think that's such an important thing because I think a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners get hung up on that, where their customers are requesting something
Sure. And you
and they
have to
just
be
go
able to
above and
say
beyond
no.
to do it. But I
Yeah.
think you have to know your numbers
Right.
to know that it's not worth it. I think that's such a great
one of the
advice.
biggest things that really shot up our numbers was people kept coming to me and asking for sliced bread. Do you have anything sliced?
Gosh.
And like, I'm an artisan bread maker.
Right.
Like,
You're like,
I'm an artisan bread
you think
maker.
this
I don't
Wonder Bread?
slice my bread. Yeah, like, but so many people asked for it that I'm like, maybe I should get a bread slicer. And so I bought a bread slicer. I found one at a used auction, and I got new blades for it. And
man,
and I sliced, and I started by
this is
like,
the
it's a
best
lot of
thing
labor
since
to do
sliced
it.
bread. Right.
It adds a lot of labor to slice a loaf of
Right.
bread. You have to wait for it to completely cool down before you can slice it and all this stuff. And sliced bread doesn't actually last as long as a whole loaf of
Right.
bread. But
Okay.
quite frankly, nobody has bread knives anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
I would say 2% of the population has a bread knife,
Right.
Yeah.
and they don't know how to use it.
So
and
you were
so
like,
that means
okay.
that 99% of all of my customers prefer sliced bread. Okay. So I started slicing bread, and my numbers just took off from there.
Yeah.
So important. Such a good.
So that I think what you're talking about, like listening to the customer, but not being at the mercy of the customer, right? And then responding to the need, even when it feels like it's a little bit in the face of maybe this thing that you've kind of held on to, like, oh, I make these artisan loaves. It's like, well, people want freaking sliced bread, and they want to make sandwiches and whatever. I think that's super cool. So just to bring it back, you moved into the facility that you're in today, and then just another kind of inflection point, another growth curve, and started adding team members, started adding processes. And now talk about your newest venture, because you're kind of branching out even one step further. You're going, vertically integrating closer to the customer, I would say, right, with the food truck.
Yeah,
So
you could
wanna
say
talk
that.
about
Like so DoughNation Bakery, we still don't, other than our farmers market,
Right.
we sell through other vendors. Our location that we're in doesn't have enough space to like have a retail front to it, like a cafe kind of a front to it. So we don't have that Hinckley's Bakery vibe where people are walking in and buying products. We distribute it out to other locations to sell the bread for us. So this new venture kind of came about. If I remember correctly, I may have mentioned something to Terry Jo Nichols, the owner of Melted Grill. She had started buying our bread, our sourdough large restaurant loaves, for their food truck. I was like, hey, if you ever want to sell this food truck, and maybe that was just a dream that I said that, but she did eventually. I mean, 2 years after making bread for her for 2 years, she's got grandkids now, and she was like, hey, the husband and I are thinking of slowing down. Are you interested in buying the food truck? And I thought to myself, being the artist, I've always wanted a food truck. Like, this is awesome. But I also recognize that I'm a part of a team. And I said, I need to talk to my wife. And I totally thought my wife was going to, like, are you crazy? Out of your mind? Like, that's what I expected. And my wife was like, oh, babe, you've always wanted a food truck.
Man.
And I'm like, you serious? Like,
awesome.
Really? Okay, I'll call her back. And so here we are. We bought the food truck, and it's winterized right now, just kind of sitting in our driveway, getting some more wrapping done on it to change all the information on it. But it's going to be the Melted Grill,
Cool.
same as it has been. We're not really changing anything as far as menu wise or anything like that. I mean, not much. We are changing a few things,
You
but
bring your magic touch to it.
Yeah.
just some things that I'm a little bit nutty about. Like, this whole DoughNation Bakery process has been like trying to find the cleanest products, the cleanest.
Right.
Like, I don't want to use bleached and bromated flour. I want it to be the cleanest flour that I can afford in order to sell a loaf of bread to the Jackson population. Like, what can Jackson afford?
Right.
I can't buy organic flour, even though I'm sure a lot of us would love to have organic. So I bought the closest thing that I could possibly find to organic to make this bread as clean as possible. We don't use seed oils. We use avocado or olive oil. And so we try to keep things as natural as possible. So things like
That's been a huge deal.
Butter.
Right? And a huge part of your story, too.
like making sure that the
Yes.
grilled cheese is using real butter,
Right.
that we're going to try to grill real butter in the grilled cheese, and we're switching the fryers over. I don't know if you've seen this trend that's going on in restaurants. The
Oh, I don't know.
beef
Tell
tallow.
us, tell us.
Oh, heck
yes,
yeah.
I have. I mean, I have heard about it. Yes.
So I think Steak and Shake was one of the first
Right.
big corporations that's switching over to beef tallow,
Sweet.
and their stock has doubled. I don't know. I invested.
Really?
I personally invested. I was
Steak and
like,
Shake,
oh wow,
huh?
they're switching.
Okay.
So I invested in the stock, and it has doubled since they switched over to beef
I'm
tallow.
a big beef tallow fan.
So I decided to switch the food truck over to beef tallow as well, which I think will be a learning curve. I don't know, because I mean,
and this is what you fried
I've
in,
never
right? The
run
oil
the
that
food
you're
truck.
frying
Yeah,
it
the
in.
frying oil.
Okay,
yep.
okay.
So what we make,
Interesting.
we have fries, and one of the big products that's out there on Facebook and stuff is these masa chips.
That's what I was heard of.
Anybody
That's
heard
what
of
I've
those?
heard of.
Masa?
I have, yeah.
They're beef
They're
tallow.
a
like
beef
tortilla
tallow
chips.
tortilla chip.
Yeah.
They're just fried in beef tallow.
Yep.
So I'm like,
Interesting.
what if we did freshly fried tortilla chips.
I'd be down for that.
We could do
I'll buy some.
nachos
I'll buy some.
with melted cheese all over it.
All I've been wanting is nachos
So
lately.
we're going to try that out on the menu. We'll see
looks
how
so
it
great.
goes. But it fits the melted mantra.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
melty
It's like-
cheese all over it. But beef tallow fries and beef tallow tortilla.
I'm very excited about this. I have a question for you because your journey has been so different than all, the other entrepreneurs we've talked to so far. Not expecting that to happen when you were, baking the bread, putting
Sure.
it out on and, asking for donations. What advice would you give entrepreneurs who find themselves in a very similar situation to you where they've done this hobby and it's starting to take off and they're like, I don't know how to handle this. What advice would you give them?
That's where that real discernment of listening to your customers, but not being a slave to your customer.
Okay.
Really like that we just got done talking about, where you're the artisan, you've got this hobby, do what you do well. And don't you're going to be tempted to branch out and do other pastries or something like that. Sure, I could have done pastries. I even bought a dough sheeter so that I could do laminated doughs. And it comes in handy once a year to do cinnamon rolls. But if the amount of mind space and time equity that it would take to convert our space into doing pastries, I can't imagine it myself. And so I restrained myself to say, no, we do sourdough bread. This is what we do.
Right.
And this is what we're known for. I'm sure people would love sourdough pastry, but we're not going to do that. We're going to do bread because that's what we do well. So,
Love that advice. That's such great advice.
So you quit your job and you started a business and you're, providing for your family and employing some people. And
well,
how does it feel?
I don't
Is
know
it
if I
worth
would
it?
say that yet. I mean, so my wife has a good job.
Yeah.
And the business has been growing. But as far as profitability, that's a huge struggle. They say
Yeah.
that the average business takes 3 or 4 years to become profitable. And we were never in the red. We focused on doing everything that we could as far as growth with cash and not going into debt.
Right. Yep.
But as far as profitability, that's hard to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would say we are mildly profitable. It keeps things going. We're comfortably floating as a business, which I'm comfortable with that. It would be really nice to be more profitable.
Right.
Excuse me. But at the same time, I'm also very comfortable with the comfortable floating and the fact that we have employees. So we have that 4 main employees and a couple others that just kind of fill in when we need them. But being able to provide jobs to people in a great environment, I think that we have a great work environment. It's very relaxed. And we make bread and bagels. That's more important to me than being highly profitable.
Mm.
Yeah, that's what success is for you. So
Yeah.
that's wonderful.
Super
Wonderful.
cool.
Yeah.
I was thinking just to give one final plug for, I feel like everyone knows this now, but in the beginning, before the sourdough movement, I don't think people knew this. I didn't know this, but you were talking about this to me very early on, the quality of ingredients, the type of flour. In my family, we had basically stopped eating bread. My son was allergic to gluten, and we're buying this gluten-free crap that isn't even bread. It
Right.
sort of dissolves and I don't know. I think everyone would vouch for this, but a life without bread is pretty miserable.
Oh, it's
It
so
is.
sad.
I can't even imagine it.
Yeah, and so
Carbs.
we had been years with no bread in our house, and my son was the reason for it. And then you were like, "Hey, I don't think this will bother him. He's got a gluten intolerance or whatever." And so I started bringing home the DoughNation loaves, and it was just it blew our minds. It seemed like
It
smoke
changed
and mirrors.
Brandon's whole life.
And I was like, we got bread again in our house, and my son could eat bread, and then I started doing more research on sourdough and like understanding some of even the health benefits of it.
Yeah.
And just being able to have bread back. And so like, I think that is a message the world needs to know about, but I don't know, maybe you can elaborate on it.
Yeah. Natural fermentation across the board is something that's actually getting a lot more press right now. And we're learning a lot more about it. And people are actually accepting it as like good information. It used to be like kind of pushed to the side, like, that's for crunchy people. But no, natural fermentations, fermented vegetables, things like that, naturally fermented bread. So this is the way we've been making bread for 12,000 years or whatever, is the natural fermentation process. And it's only been the last 180 years that we started using yeast, more akin to brewer's yeast, because it's specific strains of yeast that are very fast acting, and they eat all of the starches up, and they make a lot of gas really quickly, and so they ferment the bread fast. So we've industrialized the bread making process in that time, and what we've found out is that it actually makes the bread not as healthy for you. And there's something about this natural fermentation where you've got the bacteria and the yeast of this culture, this natural culture, that breaks down the gluten and makes it digestible. Gluten is actually very indigestible. Like, that's why people are having a problem with it. I mean, there's other things out there, but we're not going to go into that today about farms and glyphosate, all that stuff. But the main thing that I think is the problem, as long as you're using clean flour, is fermentation. It has to go through that natural fermentation process for the vast majority of people to digest it. Gluten is what's called a lectin. Lectins cause inflammation in the gut, and they make problems with the peristalsis of your system, and people will have GI distress that most of the time they don't even recognize. I didn't know that I have any kind of sensitivity until all I eat is sourdough. But if I go out and have like a coney dog or something like that with a enriched wheat bun, dude, it wrecks me. And it's not the coney sauce, it's the bun.
It's the bun, dude.
Yeah.
It's the bun.
Yes. Thank
Totally.
you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So,
Absolutely. Thank you for that lesson.
Yeah. Well,
Did not know.
thanks for bringing bread back into my house. Life's a lot
Yeah.
better.
So
Brandon
that's-
is a different person. He's
I'm
much
waiting.
happier.
I'm waiting for the day that Steak and Shake says, "Hey, we're going to naturally ferment all of our buns as well,"
Yeah,
because
right.
I think that's where
Beef
our
tallow
culture
is a good
needs to
step,
go.
but natural fermentation would be the next
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, for sure.
Right.
Sorry, side note. I know we're trying to wrap up things here, but on that lectin topic,
Yeah.
people in America have been sold a lie that we need to have whole wheat bread.
No doubt about it.
Absolutely.
Whole wheat bread, it does have some flavor characteristics that are appealing. And so it's understandable that people can like the flavor of it. But when it comes to the health of the bread, all of a sudden in the last however many years, we've been told we need to leave the fiber in the grain and have the whole grain bread. The problem with that, when we get back to lectins, is that there are microlectins in the bran that do not break down in the fermentation process. For the 12,000 years that we've been making bread, we've been sifting the bran out. Like in old cultures, they didn't use the whole grain. They sifted out the bran. We have some ill-conceived notion that
it's
they
like
just
healthier.
ground it up
Yeah.
and mixed it with water and that was the
Right.
bread. No, they sifted out the bran. And so we've now, yes, we need fiber in our diets. When you're eating a standard American diet, you need fiber. The problem is you shouldn't be getting it from grains, because those grains have microlectins in them that even when you're using natural fermentation, they still can cause gut inflammation and GI problems.
Y'all
So
didn't
the-
know you were getting a health
when it comes
lecture
to
today.
health,
The bread
That's
guy.
fantastic.
When it comes to the health of bread, if of an overall bad experience or an overall bad decision of eating bread, like we should eat fewer carbs in our lives these days. But if you're going to eat carbs, they need to be white, naturally fermented sourdough. White
You
bread.
hear that, everybody? Donation
I
Bakery.
would support that from personal experience.
I'm still
and
going to make the
100%.
multigrain
Yeah.
because there's people out there that want it. But I don't eat it.
Yeah.
Okay.
No doubt about it.
Great.
Well, Aaron, thank you, man. For telling us your story, for just making great bread that we all get to experience pretty much every day.
Every day.
In Rocket Lab and
Every day.
Cafe and our houses and all that. Appreciate your honesty just about the struggles and, the good stuff and the struggles still going on. Aaron was an original fellow of
22.
the local program. And candidly, Aaron and a few other folks that walked in Lean Rocket Lab during COVID were why we even said, hey, we need to help neighborhood-based businesses and not just manufacturing and tech-focused businesses, because we realized there were people in our neighborhood that were trying to do meaningful stuff for their families and their communities. And so we kind of launched a whole new vertical.
Way to listen to your customers.
People
Brandon.
like Aaron. So I'm so glad that you're doing what you're doing, and we're super proud of you, man.
Well,
so
for
thank
all of
you.
us small entrepreneurs, it means the world to us that you guys have set up this local program. I'm always liking and sharing anytime you post stuff online about the new cohorts that are going to be starting up. I know you have them in other counties and stuff now.
Yeah,
like, this is awesome. Awesome. And it's great because people like me, the artisan that may have the great idea, would really struggle with business if I had no support or backing or knowledge. This creates a great knowledge base for us.
Thanks, Aaron. Okay, sign up wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever, and sign up so that you can get new episodes when they come out. Bye.